I'm Chad Rutherman.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
Welcome to NOCLIP Pocket. We do what Nintendo don't. And today, we're going to be talking about Night Trap, which was a game that was originally released on the Sega CD back in 1992, developed by Digital Pictures. So, Night Trap is... Ooh, bud. Is Night Trap a game?
You hit your teeth with the glass.
Fun. I didn't actually. I just...
Gotcha.
Alright. What genre of game would you put Night Trap into?
It's definitely... I don't think it fits into any pre-existing genres. But
especially not 92.
Right. It's definitely like going for a cinematic thing, a storytelling thing, and a little bit of a horror thing.
Right.
Even though it's campy. But it's... I guess the closest thing I could compare it to is like an old PC game, like a point-and-click kind of a thing.
I can kind of see that.
But it's not that.
I motion that we change the genre of Five Nights at Freddy's to a Night Trap-alike.
Night Trap-like?
A trap light.
There you go, Trap Light.
Yeah.
We did it.
We've done it. Congratulations, us. Yeah, so in Night Trap, you play as a control operative of SCAT, the Special Control Attack Team. Which is horrible, but here we are. And you operate cameras and trigger traps in order to capture, with all due respect to the text, a bunch of limping morons wearing pantyhose over their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the whole game.
Yep.
Thanks for listening.
Such an obvious joke.
I know. No, having played it, okay. So we just played this.
Right. Moments ago.
Yeah, mere minutes ago we finished. Well, we finished watching Night Trap the movie a few minutes ago. But I have to say that given all of the ridiculousness present in this game, I still am legitimately kind of impressed at what they were able to do. Like, I don't know if it's just it was 1992 thing, and that is influencing how impressed I am with it. But the fact that they managed to take this, like, filmed thing and turn it into, like, a playable game is kind of astonishing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's definitely unique for its time, for sure, and impressive, I think. Like, no one... at least to my knowledge, had done anything like this.
Yeah, like
beforehand.
FMV was a thing, but FMV with this level of interaction really wasn't.
It's usually done the other way around, where you have like a game that you put FMV into,
right?
And this is a bunch of video clips that they put a game on top of.
Mm-hmm. And like the game that does exist, simplistic as it is, interacts with the video in a way that, like, I'm surprised works as well as it does, I guess.
Yeah. And we brought up Five Nights at Freddy's, and that's the closest thing I could think of in modern years, or anything since, really, that compares to it, because your character sits in front of, well, it's first person, you don't really have a character,
yeah.
But you sit at a monitor, and you watch all these, like, was it like 6 or 8 different screens? I want to say 8.
It's 8 screens, I think.
And you watch for intruders to come into this house, and then you can trigger traps to trap them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the basic setup, and it threads story beats in there. Like on certain screens, like the people living in the house and the people who are over at the house will be in the rooms, and things will be going on. But you only catch like snippets of it because you're on the lookout for all the OGs, as they are called, yes, are breaking into the house.
breaking in is a bit of a
just coming into the house,
walking into open doors and windows. The ones who get up on the roof are like way overachieving because all the doors are unlocked. You could easily just stroll right in. No, you know what? I didn't even this didn't even occur to me until just a few seconds ago. But like, this gives me the vibe that this game gives me is like one of those rides at an amusement park that have like a filmed premise for them to exist, because like they always address the camera like they're talking to you,
right?
And it's very odd in that way.
Yeah, no, I can see that. It's definitely, even though it's supposed to be like a game and somewhat immersive, like it has that quality to it where you can tell it's like a production.
Yeah. So the game that we're talking about, technically speaking, is the 25th anniversary re-release of the game, where they kind of reworked the menus and stuff and made it look a little bit cleaner than the original Sega CD version. But notably, they upscaled like the video clips and shit. And even given all of that, you still get the like clear, cheap production that you know that the game is, because it was a game and it wasn't given the production value of like an actual released film at the time.
Right. I think they were really smart about it though. Like the most notable thing is the quality of the acting isn't very good at all. But like they were smart and they just have the one house in the 8 rooms. It's like they don't have too many locations and they don't have too many characters. Like they kept their scope, I think, at just the right size to be able to like make something that, I mean, like still like holds up. Like it still, wasn't too overambitious or like it doesn't feel like cheap and weird in a way a lot of FMV does when you watch it now.
Right. Yeah, it has like there's like an earnestness to it, I guess, because they understood the low budget. And obviously going for the vampire home invasion plot line, like they knew what they were working with from the start. And I don't think anybody, like, we watched the documentary that comes with I put air quotes around that for everybody listening, that comes with the 25th anniversary version of the game, which we play on the Nintendo Switch, NOCLIP Pocket.
Jinko jeans.
Jinko jeans. And, like, it doesn't seem as though the people who created the game had loftier ambitions than are on display. But the FMV is kind of where the game, that's its stumbling block, is integrating this in a way that makes it like a game. And I'd say they did like a decent job of overcoming the inherent flaw of attempting to watch a movie and have interaction at the same time. But it does make it so that watching the actors is rarely the correct thing to do when you're actively playing.
Yeah, that's my big like kind of takeaway from this is I like the premise on paper actually a lot, but it's the execution that they didn't get quite right because it's just not balanced well, I don't think. It's really because they clearly I think want you to pay attention to the story that's going on with all the characters. But people are like intruding so frequently that you only catch things at like seconds at a time as you flip through all of the monitors.
Right. And I think the intention is, in order to provide like some level of like replayability to the game, there's they want you to just watch for things and just learn what's important and then jump between things where it's necessary. That's why the game has the like color code change where they dub over it with different colors so it is random as to which one they're going to choose. But also because of the color change thing, it makes it like you have to go through this game like a million times before you get to a point where you could reasonably expect to beat it.
Yeah, it seems like one of the big things, like central things they wanted to implement was a certain amount of trial and error to get through it, which I think time has told was a bad decision because we played it, the beginning bit of it, like 8 times.
I was going to say, I think between the two of us, we've played it about 8 times.
Yeah, and did not catch the security code color change any of the times. Like, we had to look it up, like, what time they give it so that we could get it.
We caught the tail end of it once.
Yeah.
And that was it, but we missed the color part. Like,
yeah, it definitely feels like a product of a different era in that way, where you would get this as like a kid and just play it over and over anyway. Like, it feels like that design choice was made with that in mind, that people didn't buy many games.
Yeah, you get it as a kid. This game's too violent and sexual for a kid to play it. That is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this game was almost central to a video game obscenity controversy in the mid-90s. And watching this game now, I mean, obviously, like, watching most things 20 to 30 years after they came out, you're going to notice that maybe the times have changed. There's certain elements, like, where things seem worse now than they did before. But for the most part, the majority of things that people consider to be above and beyond what is acceptable content tends to not come off as harshly. But, like, even things that were, like, several years prior to this, like Friday the 13th, like, had actual nudity in it, and this does not.
Yeah, it feels that aspect of it that, like, there's, like, 8 or 9, like, teenage girls all, like, in bikini. Well,
it's 6.
Yeah, like 6 girls all in, like half bikini, half clothed kind of thing going on, where, like, they just came back from, like, a boat trip or something.
Right.
And that kind of feels like horror movie parody, like, where...
See, I agree with you entirely, except I don't think it was parody. I think at worst it's homage.
Yeah, okay, fine.
We were still well into the slasher era, and you can see it in the tropes in this game.
Right. And I think, and you bring up, like, what did you say, Friday the 13th? Yeah. Which had actual nudity in it. But, like, that's the thing, is that was a rated R film.
True.
And this was a video game
Which
that
didn't have ratings
did not have a rating system, and that kids could have easily picked up and played. And while I don't think there's anything in here that, like, would be inappropriate for a kid to witness, like, I can kind of get it a little bit. Like, there are a bunch of, like, sexy teenage girls running around, like, with no shirts on.
Right.
But, you know, nothing like...
But I don't think anyone would be put off... like, sexy teenage girls, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think... a weird thing to be dismissive of. But I don't think anyone would be put off by the level of violence in this game.
Oh,
either.
no, not even a little bit.
Yeah, because at worst, they, like, the stocking-headed buffoons will occasionally grab someone by the neck with, like, a gopher. Like one of those, like, squeezy
like
grip
a clamp
things. Yeah. And then, like, blood will go through a little tube.
Right.
But that's about as bad as it gets.
No, it honestly, it feels like they went above and beyond in that aspect, to where the augurs almost feel like they could be, like, cartoon show villains. Like, the Ninja Turtles could fight the augurs.
Yeah, they're like the foot soldiers, or like the plaque from those old PSAs.
Those old, yeah. Yeah, it's very comical, and you said earlier they all limp around. It's all very video game enemy, like, you know.
Yeah, it's like real people attempting to emulate a video game character walk cycle, which is either, like, they limp or they, like, crouch and move at hyperspeed for no reason. What a strange world Night Trap created for us. So, as like what is essentially like a film first, game second, the plot, when laid bare, like if you just watch the plot straight through as we just did, I don't I kind of recommend it. I don't recommend. I recommend it with you if you have friends around.
Yeah, like if you've played the game and you want to like see everything in it, yes, absolutely watch it.
Yeah.
If you've never played the game and have no interest in it, definitely do not watch it.
I think there could be like you could get a party together to watch Night Trap as if it was a movie.
Yeah, I feel like it's not quite silly enough or bad enough to be funny to watch in a bad movie kind of way.
High praise.
Yeah, without the context of the game, it's just kind of like, what's this cheap, like 90s, like campy thing that I'm watching?
Oh no, the door trap.
I mean, there's a couple moments like that, but overall, you'd be, I think, just kind of bored.
Yeah. So the plot is the aforementioned scat team is being dispatched to this house because kids have gone missing. And you go in, or you don't go in, you sit in a room, in the control room, you've like hacked in, and you're just trying to protect these kids by triggering traps. But the family that lives in the house is a family of vampires. Mm-hmm. And it took us an embarrassingly long time.
I don't know if it's an embarrassingly long time. This is actually one thing I like that they at least tried to do, is that because you're jumping around so much and catching snippets of dialogue, you kind of like might just by chance stumble onto that fact like way early, because like it does come up in dialogue if you're watching the right scenes, but the odds that are going to happen are like pretty low. Like I like that they give you the chance to like accidentally stumble upon that conspiracy. But like I said, I don't think it's an embarrassing thing that it took us that long, because I don't think you're intended to pick it up.
That's true.
Early, or until like later in the game when it's explicitly stated.
The part of me that is embarrassed by it is the part of me that realizes that like after watching the whole plot, it's very clearly established early on that they're vampires, but you wouldn't, like you said, you wouldn't know unless you were just watching the cinematic and not trying to catch the Uggs,
right?
Which is the explicit stated goal of the game, and by extension, the scat team,
right?
So, yeah, I agree that we can be forgiven. However, we missed that, and yet we did catch that musical number like 30 times. Just be like going through.
Well, it goes on for like 2 minutes.
You would think we would just stop checking the living room.
But you never know.
Yeah. In retrospect, probably the highest, like as far as production quality goes, we've talked on other games about them being like a time capsule to the time that they're from. This game is likely about as much of one as you're going to get because of just how like that 80s to 90s transition it feels. But one of the tropes of that era that they mimic is that they've written a song, like a synth poppy song about the game, but then it's put in universe, like they're actually singing it, and it's great. Like it's really great.
I kind of like that as well, and it might just be like a nostalgia throwback kind of thing,
right?
But like, yeah, it's not so specifically about the game that it feels like it couldn't just be a pop song that exists in universe,
right? And
in that way, I think it works real well.
Yeah, and even the like. Oh, God. The fact this came out in 92 almost blows my mind, IGN.com, because the fact that, like, you have this scene where it's this outrageous fucking scene where this girl's like playing air guitar with a tennis racket, and everybody's sitting and like clapping along and listening to her sing the song or lip sync the song with the radio. There's a vampire girl in the room, and she's just like acting like she understands what fun is, and all of this shit is going on. Feels like a Tim and Eric parody of a 90s thing, but it's just like so specifically in the era that it just did it unironically. And it works. Like, it's so perfect. I don't even
It definitely feels like a sitcom, like a Full House kind of thing.
Oh, speaking of the music, It's great. It's all. This is another. It's really bad and therefore is good because of it. The like, particularly the guitar stings that happen whenever the Augs come in.
Mm-hmm.
So between like trappings, there's it just displays a static image of the room with no sound. It's got like ambient nighttime sounds, and then it'll like abruptly shift to a scene where an Aug is sneaking in, and then you just hear this dun 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 dun, and you end up hearing that like, I don't know, the most recent time that we've actually got through it and got to the what is essentially the bad ending.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up with like 90 captured Augs, so we heard that sting like approximately at least like 45 times.
Right. And
over a 25-minute period.
Yeah, and part of that is the editing, where it like this. If you switch to a monitor like right as it's doing a transition, it's like real choppy and like awkward. That won't happen too often.
Yeah.
But like it'll be like the still image, and then clearly the video splices in, and then the music starts. So it feels really awkward in that way, like these like really harsh edits.
Yeah, like it splices.
Yeah, which is makes it funny. It really does.
There's also the like vampire theme that starts with this dramatic like roll across the rack toms into another like kind of guitar centric number. But
are you talking about the Full House? Yeah. See, for a while, I thought they were like trying to give the Yellow Sweater Kid like a theme song because it felt like it played every time he had lines.
Yeah.
But it does play for a couple other characters, so I guess it is the vampire theme.
Yeah, like it's the family theme. Or whatever. But because it's that same, it has that dramatic roll, like that fill at the beginning. Every time that it plays, it gets like, it makes every scene with them seem like it should be like an incredibly dramatic scene, and just sometimes they're just talking about shit.
It feels like such like an intro to a song, you know, like we named a couple while we were playing it that it reminded us of.
Yeah.
But like it almost makes it feel like it's a musical. Like they're gonna like it's gonna be like the character walks in and it's like shoo doo 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 doo, and then like they're gonna start singing.
Yeah.
Or like it feels like it's going to like she said, like something really dramatic's gonna happen or something. But it's just like they just go into regular dialogue.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we're gonna go check on the Augs now. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's another one of those elements that doesn't quite land, but is really funny because of it.
Yeah, no, it killed me the one time that like it was like mixed down so that it was quiet in the when it happened, because like there was already something else going on, and then Yellow Sweater Guy comes out from the bookcase, and it's just like. Let the drums whisper in your ear. I don't know. I feel like I actually enjoyed this though, but not like the gameplay is not real fun.
Right, yeah. I also enjoyed it as like a multimedia experience that it was for us. And the fact that it got ported to Switch is just kind of amusing on its own.
Yeah.
Especially shout out to like the documentary where they're in court and someone says this game would never appear on a Nintendo system.
Yeah, it's like I forget who it is. It's somebody like at Nintendo of America was giving a testimony. And
lo and behold, 25 years later,
here
pick it up on Nintendo Switch.
I didn't mention that, by the way. This game, the 25th anniversary, got released on pretty much all the major consoles, which is the wackiest fucking thing in the world, that you can now just be like, on a whim, play Night Trap. Mm-hmm. But yeah, here we are.
I felt like I had something else I was going to say, too.
You enjoyed it as a multimedia experience.
Oh, yeah, but, okay. So I did enjoy it as the multimedia experience it was for us, but, I do agree, like, the gameplay feels like it needs ironed out, like, you know, it's, like I said, it's the balancing isn't quite there. There's like, the Og invasions are too frequent for you to really pay attention to the story clips at all. Like, we watched all the clips edited together as Night Trap the movie.
Right.
And there were parts that we didn't see any of. Like, there's a part where the black officer shows up as, like, to check in on the house. Like, he goes in disguise. It's like his accent, it sounded like it was supposed to be Jamaican. It also kind of like it was supposed to be an Indian accent. Like, it was very bad. But he goes in and he's like asking about like his boat, if they'd seen his boat and whatever. And it's like we didn't see any of that,
no.
And we played it like most of it through like 8 times.
Yeah.
And like there were a couple other scenes like that we just didn't see any of.
Oh yeah, like we're fucking Crazy Eddie.
Yeah. Weird Eddie, who is the best character.
100%.
Early in the story, when all the girls come home for their boating trip or whatever, they're all, like going into the house, and Crazy Eddie, who is, I guess, just Weird Eddie.
I made the mistake. Sorry. It's my bad.
Weird Eddie just shows up. I guess he's like a local resident or whatever.
Just a local eccentric.
Yeah, he just like shows up, and someone's like, "Who's that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's just Weird Eddie." He'll just like kind of squat there in the bushes for a while, but he'll go away.
Yeah, and which he does. Like, not even the game tries to play him off as sympathetic, or rather, not the game. The game doesn't try to do fucking anything with the characters. But Night Trap the movie tries to play off Eddie as a sympathetic character, but
like he's been spying on the Oggs or whatever.
Right, but he does just like literally go and sit in the bushes. Like a weirdo. Like he's just a crazy person, actually.
He's an Og peeper.
And not only that, but he acknowledges the player character.
Yeah.
Like, because you launch one off the roof.
This is the best clip in the whole thing.
Yeah, you launch one of the Oggs off the roof with what is the best, like, Og trap in the game, because you're literally just catapulting somebody off the top of a building.
Trap is just that you murder that guy.
Trapped him. Which I guess is the same connotation as like a mouse trap.
Right.
But after you murder this guy, Weird Eddie like looks up at the camera and just like throws a thumbs up.
Yep, like an open mouth smile, thumbs up, and it's like the Og gets launched off the roof and lands like right next to him, and so he just gives a thumbs up to the camera and then runs away.
Yeah. Like, does Eddie know about like what? Eddie's the wild card.
So maybe they're going for like a Ratman thing from Portal, where like he knows where all the cameras and traps are because he's been like
sneaking around.
Yeah, he's been spying on shit.
I could potentially see, and he like knows what the Oggs are. I guess like an electrical engineer.
Yeah, he knows the family's vampires.
Mm-hmm. Which is like he doesn't do anything about that until now.
No. Maybe he likes their blood wine.
It could be, or the blood popsicles.
Right. Blood pops.
Blood pops.
Blood pops.
I love the scene where the blood pops actually come up. Also, this is basically a movie review at this point.
Yeah, well, at first, like, the first scene where they're in the kitchen, they open the refrigerator, and one of them's like, oh, like, what are these popsicles? Like, they try to do, like, a setup and payoff thing with it, even though it's stupid.
I mean, it's successful as a setup and payoff.
I guess.
Technically.
And then the dad says that they're, like, cherry whatever popsicles. Mm-hmm. And, like, the whole time... Yeah, homemade popsicles. And he's been drinking this glass of wine, which we noticed when we actually sat down to watch Night Trap the movie, that it was, like, weirdly red. And I'm like, oh, that's just blood in the glass.
Or a daiquiri.
It's supposed to be. Like, at the time, I was like, definitely, it was just blood.
Yeah, drink a glass of blood.
So they are seeding this stuff as it goes on, but there's just not a lot of development, so it feels a little weird.
Yeah. When they do the payoff, just so that we don't leave you guys hanging, for the homemade cherry popsicles, the girl who eats the popsicle takes like the world's hugest bite out of it.
And it's like they said it was homemade, and it's like they put it all in like a plastic bag, like the whatever mix, and have frozen it in like a big like square.
Yeah, just like a block.
Yeah, and so she just picks it up and takes a huge bite out of it. Like the kind that would hurt your teeth.
Because of how cold it is.
Yeah.
But then she's just like, oh, that tasted like blood. And then immediately, 1 second later, they open the closet thing and see the dead guy hanging up with like a tube coming out of his neck. And they're just like, uh-oh, I guess that when they said vampires 4 previous times, they weren't making it up. And then they run off.
Yeah.
Classic horror movie people, all things considered. I mean, I don't really have that much more.
No, not too much. Just a couple, at least one other thing I wanted to touch on. So it's the family, the vampire family. It's the mom and the dad, the sister and brother, and then there's the other guy with the dark hair that she claims is their friend.
Right.
Is he also a vampire?
I believe so.
Because they never. I don't feel like they ever.
Is he? Hold on.
Oh wait, no. He grabs tall, like 9 foot tall blonde woman.
Okay, yeah.
And like bites her neck and drags her into the bookshelf.
Yeah.
So he is also a vampire.
Which of the 2 dudes, is it sweater guy or dark hair guy, just like strolls into a room at one point, throws up a peace sign, and just shoots a lightning bolt?
That's sweater guy.
That sweater guy?
I also want to just mention that one of the guys is like, he's blonde, and he's wearing a sweater that is like literally 2 times too big for him. It's huge and just draping off of him in true 90s fashion.
Yeah, it is. And he like has the sleeves pushed up too.
Yeah.
So he has like these huge baggy sleeves. It looks like if Velma from Scooby-Doo.
Oh yeah, she does have those huge sleeves.
Yeah, but she was like 8 feet tall and then loaned her sweater to this kid who's like 5'9".
And he's also got like the white pants on too. Like it's weird.
And he always wears sunglasses.
Yes.
It's
to hide his green eyes.
that nobody else has to worry.
Yeah. Maybe he can't get his eye changing ability under control.
Yeah, he's like Cyclops from the X-Men.
Yeah.
Well, do we have final thoughts?
Sure. I'll go. As I said earlier, I did enjoy the experience of like watching the documentary, playing the game, and then watching the compiled video clips. But like the actual game itself is a bit too unbalanced and like requires too much trial and error to get through it. Like without trying not to exaggerate anyway, I bet you'd have to play this through at least 50 times to be able to beat it.
Right.
Just to catch everything. So I think it's successful in some ways and needed more refinement in others. But like it's something I'm surprised didn't inspire more like imitators. And like I said, Five Nights at Freddy's is the only thing I can think of, and that's become wildly popular.
True. Which Night Trap really never got. All of its sort of notoriety came from the controversy around it. Despite being such like a unique thing when it came out.
Right, and I think there's like a working formula in there somewhere.
For sure. If they gave it more breathing room, I think it would require a lot of effort, I'm sure. This is where, if you're done, I'll segue into my
that was all I had.
It felt right, but I wanted to make sure. Just to pick up from where you were on that, it's sort of like there's a potential here that would require a lot of effort to do, but I think we're like very capable of it now, as opposed to in the 90s when we were Night Trap capable.
Right.
Now we're further along than that. And like with the appropriate amount of like different possibilities for each outcome, like whether you trap or don't trap things, and I'm just going to keep using trap as the verb, even though I assume that whatever this hypothetical game is would not just be Night Trap 2. like, you could tell a pretty compelling story that you would actually be able to watch and play without, like, the incredible precision required not to fuck up in Night Trap, and also that delivers sort of a more open, branching narrative that can even just, like, come back to whatever ending as it is. I think people nowadays are just have less patience to play something over and over again to memorize it. And that's really Night Trap's biggest downfall. Which is unbelievable to say.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I would have loved this game at, like, at least partially ironic, but mostly genuine love for this game if it was a little easier, a little more forgiving, something that you could actually play through.
Yeah, and I can imagine, like, having this game to play at the time, it probably would have seemed like a really cool, novel thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's even cool and novel now.
Yeah,
it's just like it's not the same affection you'd have for it.
Right.
Thank you for listening to NOCLIP Pocket today.
What are we talking about next time?
Well, all right, so next time, I got this package in the mail the other day, and it has this game in it.
Oh, well, where's it from?
That's weird. It doesn't have there's no return address on it. Whatever. But it's a game. It just was like a loose cartridge. It's an old Game Boy cartridge, and it says Pokemon Black, which, like, obviously that's a DS game. So I don't know what the fuck this is, but I figured, you know, somebody sent it in. I feel like we haven't done enough, like, fan request stuff. So I'm assuming that they sent it to us because they wanted us to play it. So let's just say next week, NOCLIP Pocket, let's talk about Pokemon Black.
That sounds good.
All right, cool. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com. There you can find, an email address if you want to talk to us. All of our old episodes are there, our YouTube videos. I put in a cool playlist that has just, like, the most recent episode on the main page, and then you can just basically scroll through all the old ones if that's, your jam. Otherwise, everything is on iTunes, on Google Play. Follow us on Twitter at NOCLIP Podcast. Thanks to Janelle for taking over that responsibility from our unsocial, non-antisocial asses. I don't know. You got, like, a subscribe button joke you want to get to?
I hadn't been thinking about it. I've dropped the ball here.
That's fair. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Cool. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on NOCLIP.
It's on
NOCLIP. All right. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on NOCLIP Podcast. God damn it.
NOCLIP non-clip podcast.
Stances, you're good.
Stances, you're good.
Good. Man, they put a lot of alcohol in these.